Hey, for week 2 for management, now that we have a good foundation of management, the foundations of management, let's dive into week 2. So, this week we're going to talk about decision making, strategic approach, and attitude. First of all, let's start with decision making process. When we think about decision making processes, managers make, like us, everyone makes decisions every day throughout the day. It can be as simple as deciding what to eat, what time to get up, to making major decisions for our business and organization for our team. Nonetheless, we make decisions every day. So, decision making is one of the key aspects of being a manager. And when we think about the decision making process, there are a number of what we call information related barriers. And what the barriers mean is that when information is either incorrect or incomplete, there's a lot of uncertainty. We have to be able to weed through the uncertainty and be able to come up with an approach as managers that help us to give clarity to the decision making process. Also, the opposite of that, when information is incorrect or incomplete, is when we have too much information overload, so to speak. In that instance, it's difficult to grasp the big picture and recognize important information. Another aspect of decision making is we typically are time constrained, right? And the circumstances affect our ability and the time frame in which we have to make decisions. One of the key barriers in circumstances is stress from personal life. Maybe we have something going on in our family or personal life. Maybe because of the stress that's occurring in our lives, we might be less objective or disciplined in following what may be a pretty sound decision making process. We have to be aware of what kind of stress is impacting us. How are we feeling? How fatigued we might be. It's an opportunity for us to think about intentionally protecting against those tendencies. And then we all know, we've all experienced this, and this is the fact of modern life. Time. When we feel rushed, we have to sometimes make snap decisions. We feel like we're rushed into making decisions. So when that occurs, and that occurs probably frequently, we need to make sure that we can commit to taking enough time to thinking through decisions. We also need to be aware of as we're making decisions and considering our decision making process, the impact that cognitive biases can have. There's several of them, as you'll see in the readings from chapters 3 and 4. One of which is called confirmation bias. And that means information that we believe will confirm our own judgment. We have to be careful of avoiding confirmation bias. We need to make objective decisions if we can. Another type is called framing bias. That's influenced by the way that a situation or problem is presented. And a couple more to think about. Anchoring. Anchoring is when we focus on initial information and then we fail to adjust to later information. So we get fixated on that initial approach to information. A very common one that you've probably heard of before and you might be familiar with is called the halo effect. This occurs when our initial attitude that we have towards certain individual tendencies or organizations frames our decision making. That attitude or feeling towards that individual organization may contain bias, and that's called the halo effect. And then we also have what's called the overconfidence bias, where individual decision makers trust their own judgment and allow it to override the judgment of others. And then finally, final cognitive bias is a status quo. We don't want to rock the boat. avoid change, maintain the status quo. That's a dangerous place to be, especially in this dynamic world where things are constantly changing. Some very well-known decision-making processes that I wanted to highlight with you this week, one of which is called rational decision-making. Rational decision-making is just like it sounds. It's rational, it's logical. The approach is, typically there's several steps. You identify the problem, the first step. The second step, you establish decision criteria. And then you weigh those decision criteria, followed by generating alternatives. What are the potential options or alternatives we can decide from in terms of our decision process? And then we evaluate those alternatives, and then we select finally the best alternative. The rational decision-making process utilizes data, logic, and facts. Under the rational decision-making process, it can lead to very sound decisions, right? It's been in place for a long time. Another type decision-making process is called evidence-based decision-making. Evidence-based is even more factual than rational in terms of it uses objective facts alone and leaves little room for error and must have evidence. The proof of success under evidence-based decision-making is relying on actual experimentation to demonstrate the likelihood of success. This approach focuses on data collection, sharing, and analytics, and it provides plenty of material to work with, sort of like just the facts. Another decision-making process, just to mention, is descriptive and predictive analysis. Descriptive analysis the goal is to understand and describe what's taken place as revealed by data sets. This approach attempts to explain what data reveals about events that have occurred. It can be a daunting task to accomplish. That's descriptive analysis. Predictive analysis, where we're projecting future trends that are subjected to the discipline of evidence-based principles. There are a number of different tools we can use, as you will find out and remember from the readings, to make decisions, one of which is a decision tree. This is a useful tool for situations, for example, where financial data and probability of outcomes are relatively reliable. The decision tree starts with a decision mode. The first step, let's say, for example, and this is on the slide deck on slide 14, that's attached to the materials. Let's say the decision is you want to go on vacation. Now, the second decision, where are we going to go on our vacation? And three options in this scenario have been identified. The first is go to Europe. Second, visit family. Or the third, go camping. Some of you probably are saying to yourselves, this is not even a decision. I would go to Europe. But let's go through this. So under the option to go to Europe, the next decision, once we identify potential locations or destinations rather, is where do we want to go in Europe? Well, let's say we narrow it down to 3 countries. Visit Spain, Germany, or Hungary. So those are the specific destinations in Europe that we are considering, those 3. Now, the next option, the second option that we mentioned was called visit family. And the 2 options under visit family are visit parents or visit in-laws. Then the final and third option is go camping. Then we list 2 different locations, potentially to go camping. And then finally, the last aspect is we detail out, going back to our European vacation, potential vacation, what are the outcomes? If we visit Spain, we want to see new things and have a good time. If we decide to visit Germany, we'd have a great time revisiting sites we've already seen. So in this instance, The travelers have already been to Germany. This would be a return trip. And then for the potential visit to Hungary, we visit family, save money, and have a good time. So those are three different options in three different countries. Then we go back to visiting family, where the options again were visiting parents or in-laws. When we talk about visiting parents, we'd spend quality time together. We'd celebrate a family member's birthday. And then if we decide to visit the in-laws, there'd be no more guilt trips. We've done our part. We spent time with our in-laws. Finally, the third option of camping, again, two different potential venues. We have a nice long drive, spend a night in a beautiful forest at one location, and then, or go to a closer destination where the closer drive will allow us to spend more time in that specific location. So all of these break down the decision, right? The decision tree helps us gain more clarity into each step of the process. Now that we've covered some decision-making approaches and tools, let's talk about making group decisions. What are some of the benefits of making group decisions as opposed to individual? So one of the advantages is that we have a sum of knowledge, skills, and creativity in a group of several people that will exceed the knowledge, skills, and creativity of an individual. Could also have increased understanding of the issue, decisions amongst team members. We pool our resources and knowledge. What are the potential disadvantages of group decision making? It's a slower process and more expensive. There's a tendency for group members to support a proposed group position, and decisions may move toward extremes. So, how do we as managers help facilitate group decision making? We want to use different approaches and techniques, at least two of which I'm sure you're familiar with, if not all of them. Brainstorming is the first one. This is where we get together and provide ideas, uninhibited ideas, and creative ideas on what we think the solution should be for the decision. And then we narrow down those decisions. For example, the techniques in a group setting would be we write ideas on how to solve the problem. Each member has a specific idea that they want to defend or present. And then the group engages in a discussion, and then the group members vote and rank the ideas to see which ones win out in the end. When you do brainstorming, you alleviate the fear of criticism, and you have devil's advocacy of the Delphi technique to help narrow your decisions as well. So, in summary about decision making, decisions hopefully there'll be a really strong method to make decisions. We have to weigh what the strengths and weaknesses and the setting and circumstances of making group decisions. And as managers, we need to keep the discussion on topic in order that we can focus in and make good decisions. Another aspect I wanted to touch on real briefly is attitude. Attitude is everything. As Billy Cox mentioned, there are two things in life you are in total control over. And that is your attitude and your effort. So I hope this helps you understand decision making as managers, and I appreciate your attention. Have a great week.